Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this meeting of the BCP Licensing Sub-Committee. The first item on this morning's agenda is election of chair. Can I seek nominations, please?
I'll nominate yourself, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett.
Happy to second.
Thank you, Councillor Chapman-Law. Right, firstly then, could we deal with the housekeeping, please?
Please note that this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note that if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of the building in Bourne Avenue. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum and mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you. Item 2, apologies. I don't think we have any apologies this morning. No, thank you. Item 3, declarations of interests. Members, do you have any declarations of interest with regard to the agenda items on this morning's meeting?
Not for me.
No, thank you. Councillor Chapman-Law?
None here, Chair.
Thank you. Item 4, protocol for public speaking at hearings. A protocol for public speaking at meetings of the Licensing Subcommittee is included with the agenda sheet for noting. Item 5, application for Seafront Mini Market, 18 Westerford Road, Bournemouth BH1 2BY. I will now ask each participant to introduce themselves and state their role. I am Councillor Flagg, the elected chair for this morning's subcommittee meeting.
Councillor Steve Bartlett, member of this committee.
Councillor Chapman-Law, member of the subcommittee.
We're also joined this morning by Councillor Farquhar, who is the reserve member. He's not required to participate because the members are here, but he will remain for the purposes of observing for training purposes, but he will take no part in the hearings or deliberations. BCP Council, please.
Andy McDermott, legal advisor to the committee.
Christiane Tan, clerk for the meeting.
Good morning, Michelle Cutler. I'm here observing today. Thank you.
Ellie King, BCP Council Licensing Officer.
Thank you. And for the applicant, please.
Alina Kadir, the applicant.
I'm John Walsgrove, solicitor for the applicant.
Thank you very much. And objecting, I have Frankie James, I believe, who is on Teams meeting. Good morning.
Morning, Frankie James. I'm the Principal Antisocial Behaviour Officer for BCP.
Thank you. And we also have with us this morning Councillor Jamie Martin.
Yeah, morning, Councillor Jamie Martin, Ward Councillor for Bournemouth Central.
Thank you. Before I run through the procedure, please may I check that all persons who have given notice of their intention to speak have been identified, and any person who wishes to withdraw representation or wishes not to speak has been identified. If there are no comments, I will take this as correct. I will now explain the proposed procedure and order of speaking for the hearing as follows. The licensing officer presents the report. Questions of the licensing officer by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. The applicant will make their application. Questions of the applicant by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. Objectors will make their representations. Questions of the persons objecting by all parties, members of the subcommittee to go first. All parties will be given an opportunity to sum up, with the party who spoke last to go first. The hearing will then conclude. The subcommittee will deliberate in private with the legal advisor and clerk present. Notification of the subcommittee's decision will be given within the period of 5 working days, beginning with the day or the last day on which the hearing was held. The notification of decision will include information about the right of appeal as appropriate. I will now ask all parties to confirm agreement on the proposed procedure or make representations. Ellie King. Thank you. Andy McDermott,
Agreed.
Alina Kadir,
Agreed.
John Walsgrove,
Agreed, sir.
Councillor Jamie Martin,
Agreed.
and Frankie James.
Agreed.
Thank you. Please may I remind all parties speaking not to repeat the information which they have already given in writing, but to expand on their written representations. All questions are to be asked through the chair, and there will be no cross-examination of the parties. I will now ask the licensing officer to present the report. Ellie, thank you.
Good morning, Chair. The matter before you for consideration this morning is an application for new premises licence at Seafront Mini Market on Westover Road in Bournemouth. The application was submitted by Mr James Andrews of Set Square Studios Limited on behalf of Alina Kadir on the 25th of February 2026. The licensing authority received 5 representations in respect of this application, 1 from Dorset Police as a responsible authority and 4 from other persons under the Prevention of Crime and Disorder, Prevention of Public Nuisance, Public Safety and Protection of Children from Harm licensing objectives. Following successful mediation, both Dorset Police and Councillor Earl withdrew their representations. Details of all representations, mediated amendments and conditions are included in your report pack. We have 3 representations remaining. Members are asked to consider the evidence before them today and decide whether or not to grant the application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellie. Members have any questions of the officer at all? Councillor Chapman Law.
Obviously, trading standards have been in and found some counterfeit goods and illegal vapes and that sort of stuff. Has there been any further instances of anything since then, or is?
As far there's nothing on the record since that then to reflect that there's any further problems in that respect.
Thank you. Any further questions? I have a question which you might better just deal with at this point, Ellie. I have concerns with regards to the number of outlets in that vicinity, and I wondered if you might better just give the committee a little bit of guidance in regard to how many places alcohol can be purchased within, say, a half-a-mile radius of those premises. Thank you.
Okay, so I did look down the whole of Westover Road. So I literally went through every premises on Westover Road. And on Westover Road, there are 13 licensed premises. Of those 13, 6 are licensed for on and off sales of alcohol. 4 are for on sales only, and there's only 1 that's got off sales only. So of the 13, that's the breakdown. One of those licenses, just for completeness, is suspended at the moment. I'm dealing with it. I'm expecting that to be surrendered shortly anyway. But yeah, that's the case. Did you want any further detail on those?
Not me personally, thank you. Any further information? No. Okay. Councillor Chapman.
Are you able to give any detail on the reason for the suspension of the?
Yeah, it's simply that the premises is closed. The annual fee has not been paid, and there's an automatic suspension of the licence while the annual fee is not paid. I've been trying to track down the licence holder, haven't been able to do so, but I expect the limited company to go into to be dissolved shortly.
Councillor Bartlett.
Yeah, I think you said there was 1 that had a licence for off sales. Can you describe the nature of that off sales? Is it purely an off sales, or is it associated with off sales from within a convenience store or something like that?
Yeah, so the other off sales premises on that on Westover Road is Westover Express, which is another convenience store along the same road. So it's off sales between 8 and 11 Monday to Sunday. And I believe Alina is also the licence holder for that premises as well.
Thank you for that. Any further questions, members? No? Happy for me? Councillor Bartlett.
How long has that other licence been held? Can you say?
It was granted in June 2025. My mistake, 2024. It's shown incorrectly on the licence.
Thank you. Did you have any questions at all, Francesca, for the officer?
Yes, can I just ask how late they're looking to have the licence extended to on the premises?
So the application was originally for supply of alcohol until 3 in the morning, but following mediation with the police, it was reduced until 11 at night.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. If there are no further questions, can I ask the applicant to address the committee, please?
Thank you, Chair. In terms of the representations on behalf of Elena, I'll run through the changes we've made to the application following mediation with the police. I'll then put forward some of the key points that I want to make as to why I say you can grant this application. I'll make some observations generally on the representations that were made from those interested parties that still remain objecting to the application, and conclude by just making some references to the Section 182 guidance, applying that guidance to the facts of this case. So dealing first with the changes we've made to the application, as you've just heard from the licensing officer, we have amended it to reduce the hours so that they are 8 to 11 each day, 8 a.m. until 11 p.m. And that mirrors the licence at number 45 Westover Road, which, as you've heard, is Elena's other shop, and was granted a licence in June of 2024. We've also removed the request for late night refreshment, so hot food and hot drinks would not be sold at all. And of course, there are the extensive number of conditions which have been agreed with trading standards, environmental health and the police, which are outlined in your agenda. So what are the key points that I want you to take into account when considering this application? The first and principal point is that none of the responsible authorities have made a representation to this application. So originally the police had, but as you've heard, that has now been withdrawn following the reduction in hours. And I'm sure you're aware of the Section 182 guidance, which says responsible authorities are the experts in their own areas. And I'll be inviting you in due course, when I summarise, to attach greater weight to what the responsible authorities have said about this application than those interested parties who are making representations this morning. The second point relates to the Westover Express, the licence which Elena was granted in June of 2024. That also came before a licensing committee when the police objected to the grant of that application. It's approximately, well, it's under 200 metres away from the subject address this morning. And in the reasons given by the committee, which I've read the minutes, it quite clearly states that the situation regarding crime and antisocial behaviour in that area had been improving, not getting any worse, which I think is what the interested parties are suggesting to you is the case now. But that certainly wasn't the case, and we say it's not the case now. Otherwise, the police would have maintained their objection. If they thought a licence being granted for this address was going to add to the antisocial behaviour, then they would have maintained their objection no matter what hours we had put forward. But that isn't their view, and they are the experts on crime and disorder, which is the principal licensing objective which is being engaged in your determination today. That licence, as I say, was granted 2 years ago, Now, if there has been a negative impact from granting the licence, then those interested parties would be able to put forward today credible evidence to you that the situation in that street and that locality had got worse. And I haven't read anything in any of the representations which points to any credible evidence that it is. There are statements of opinion, and I say, well, those statements of opinion cannot compete with the expert view of the police, who are content that if you grant this licence 8 to 11, that the licensing objectives will have no negative impact and crime disorder will not increase in this location. The third key point relates to all of those conditions. This will be an unbelievably regulated premises licence. There's a huge number of conditions for what is a very small convenience store. And I'm just going to draw your attention to 2 or 3 of those conditions, because in my view, they go directly to the heart of the concerns which have been expressed by the interested parties about whether there'll be an increase in street drinking, and particular the vulnerability of the people that are being accommodated by the YMCA. So the conditions agreed actually mirror those for the Westover Express, Alina's other store, in terms of the strength of alcohol that can be sold and the fact that no single cans above 5.3 ABV, which is a low level. I must admit, I do licensing all around the country, and generally the lower strength alcohol conditions are at 6 or 6.5% ABV. So going down to 5.3 is a considerable concession. There's also conditions on there about not selling alcohol to persons under the influence of drugs. Now, Alina's instructions to me are that the principal issues from the people that are resident in the YMCA and their vulnerability does not necessarily involve alcohol. The biggest concern around their vulnerability is around drug use, and she is more than happy to have a condition on the licence to prevent any person that appears to be under the influence of drugs not to be able to buy alcohol. Of course, there's already an offence under the Licensing Act about not selling someone who's intoxicated, so you don't need to have a condition around the alcohol. But in addition to that, concerns I think were expressed by the YMCA about, well, the shop aren't going to know who the vulnerable persons are in relation to alcohol, which if the YMCA wanted to work with the retailers in Westover Road, then they could identify who the vulnerable persons were that are accommodated, and they could ask those shops not to serve them alcohol. They could provide photos of those individuals, and the staff could be trained to ensure that if those individuals came in, they would not be served alcohol. A retailer has a discretion and a right to refuse service for any reason, as long as they're not grounds of discrimination. I would say these certainly aren't grounds of discrimination. And it would be better if the YMCA sought to work with local retailers rather than just simply oppose and say, well, we don't object to a shop opening and selling other goods, just not alcohol, as if they've got control of what should be open and closing within Bournemouth. My comments there specifically relate back to my final points about the Section 182 guidance, because recently that was changed, where a licensing committee now has to consider the economic benefit of an application. And there is significant economic benefit in a convenience store being able to have sustainability, where it's able to sell all of the core products that one would expect to find under one roof. And one of those core products of convenience retailing is alcohol, alongside tobacco, vapes, fresh dairy product, milk, bread, and food items. And it's important for Elena's business, and it's the sustainability of that business, to have this premises license granted and to be able to offer a small selection of alcohol to the customers, so they can have that one-stop experience. It seems to me that if you give credibility to the opinion that vulnerable people living from the YMCA accommodation, you should refuse the application to protect them. It seems to me that goes directly against the Section 182 guidance and seeks to potentially protect a very small minority of individuals who may have issues with alcohol misuse, as opposed to the significant benefit this premises could bring to local residents and tourists coming into Bournemouth. And as I've said, the most important thing for the YMCA to do is to try and work with the retailers and the hospitality businesses in the local area rather than against them. And we hope that they will take that on board and work with Alina in the future, because obviously she's already got one licensed premises on Westover Road. We hope that that will be two premises in due course. And she is not a licensee who is there simply to make money out of selling alcohol. She has very strict policies, very strict training, is commended by the police for the policies that she puts in place and the training to ensure that children aren't sold alcohol, that people under the influence are not sold alcohol. And there has been no issues arising in relation to the grant of the premises license at the shop up the road in the last 2 years. And we say that is the credible evidence on which you can rely to grant this application. Going back to the Section 182 guidance, it makes it very clear that your decision has to be evidence-based, and that's the credible evidence we're putting before you. All of the points I've made regarding the issue of the licence to Alina 2 years ago and the expert opinion of the police that this will not have a negative impact on the area, as opposed to opinion-based evidence from the YMCA, the local councillor and your safeguarding officer. So in conclusion, there is sufficient evidence before you to grant this application, and there is no credible evidence before you to refuse it. We're obviously here to answer any questions if you need any detail about how the shop is operated or any of the matters that I've raised in my representation this morning. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr. Walsgrove. Just to state that we were expecting Mark Inpen from the YMCA, and as you've mentioned him, whilst he's not here, members are obviously cognizant that the representation he made is within the agenda pack, and that will be taken into consideration when we make our decision. Members, any question for Mr. Walsgrove at all? Councillor Bartlett.
Yes, I just wondered if the licensed premises you have at the moment, have you actually experienced people coming in, antisocial behaviour, children trying to buy alcohol, you know, just general nuisance people wandering into the shop, maybe under the influence of drugs, or, you know, what has general experience have been of the licence holder in that particular premises that you already have?
So there have been instances where people under the age of 18 have attempted to purchase alcohol, and obviously there are records of that kept at the store. So every time a member of staff refuses the service of alcohol, it is recorded. So yes, I mean, every convenience store will at some point have people trying to buy alcohol when they're not the right age, and that's why we have those Challenge 25 policies and the conditions in place. So yes, it has experienced that, and equally has experienced, but on rare occasions, those coming in who are either already intoxicated or the staff take the view that they're under the influence of drugs. So yes, refusals have been made for that reason. They haven't experienced antisocial behaviour in the shop itself. And I hope that answers your question adequately.
Has there been any experience of violence towards the shopkeepers?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. Councillor Chapman, Lord, do you have any questions?
So the refusal register that you've got, typically how many a week?
It depends how busy. Like if we have festivals going on, there's more people coming. Like for instance, from Southampton, they don't know my shop, so they're still coming in and trying to buy. But the locals, they're not coming in anymore because they know they cannot buy. So on these occasions, we have more people that trying with Mum's ID, and we've seen it everything. We've seen it all. Yeah.
I have a few questions, if I may. How many staff will be on duty at any given time within the premises? Perhaps if you could just elaborate on the busy times rather than the quieter times.
Usually we have two, one at the door, one at the till. If we're more busy, I bring someone else to just watch everyone, you know, who's taking what and make sure they're paying, watch the children, what they're taking, because if they cannot buy without IDs, they might try to steal it, but we have people watching them. So I have enough staff. I always, you know, check the cameras and see how busy it is. If it's more busy, I'll go there myself, or I send someone, more staff to just watch the shop.
When you say that you have somebody on the door, do you have a policy whereby you lock the door if there's a situation? I know quite a lot of convenience stores that when the schools turn out, they get a high influx of youngsters,
I know, yeah.
and to make sure that things don't happen, they lock the door and only allowed 6 in at a time, or whatever, so they can keep an eye on them. Do you have a policy for that at all?
Sorry, we don't lock the door, but if we see a group of kids that might deal, like not even alcohol, but then we say one at a time, but we don't lock the door to anybody, no.
Yeah.
It's very rare that we have to say 2 at a time. It's certain groups that we know that they come in daily.
Yeah.
So we just say 1 at a time.
What sort of percentage do you think your sales of alcohol will be? Are you able to give us a comparison to the express outlet? Do you think it would be the same as that or less?
Yes, in terms of a percentage, it's going to be pretty much the same as the other one, which will be anywhere between 8 to 10%.
And the last one was at bullet point 3. It mentions that one of the conditions is that appropriate signage advising customers of the policy being prominently displayed, but it doesn't make reference to which policy.
That's the one relating to no single cans. So, yeah, that definitely needs to be reworded because it's not particularly clearly worded. So it could say appropriate signage advising customers of the condition relating to no single cans.
Yeah.
Above 5.3%.
Okay. Right. Duly noted. I have no further questions. Members, any further questions at all? Francesca, did you have any questions of the applicant at all?
No, no questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Martin, do you have any questions of the applicant at all?
Just one, because based on sort of where you mentioned for YMCA and what might or might not go on in there, I'm just wondering how that sits with 16.5 of the licensing policy. The onus you were putting was on to the, but the onus was putting onto the YMCA to go out into the street and to liaise with businesses. But I'm just wondering where you've met 16.5 of the licensing policy within what you've just said.
Yeah, I mean, as the licensing committee or experience committee will know, the Licensing Act is all about working in partnership. And I don't expect the people from the YMCA to be out every day liaising with the local shops, but certainly in other town centres around the UK, there are various schemes similar to the pub watch scheme. So where hopefully the committee are familiar with that expression. So in lots of towns and cities around the UK, there's something called shop watch. And it's the same thing. So where individuals have caused issues within retail, those individuals are alerted to all the other retailers, and so they are barred from the premises. Now, with the vulnerable people, and I'm not suggesting for one moment that all the people at the YMCA are vulnerable people in terms of alcohol. It's likely to be a minority of those people that are vulnerable to the alcohol. It would be quite easy for the YMCA to say to the off licenses, these are the people that we've got concerns about. We don't want you to sell them alcohol. And the retailers would easily do that, because, as I say, it's not about the retailers trying to make as much money by selling alcohol to whoever comes into their shop. It's about selling it in a responsible way. And Alina cares as much for people who are vulnerable as the people running the YMCA are. That's a fairly simple solution to stop the concerns that they've raised about those people purchasing alcohol and drinking on the street. Just tell all the retailers who are those vulnerable people. They won't get served. That addresses the policy about vulnerability, rather than trying to shut businesses down or not have the freedom to sell alcohol or other products.
Did you have any further questions?
I mean, yeah, appreciate that, but obviously when the mediation's gone on, the applicant has only gone back to the police and not spoken to the other representations individually, and then now you're saying the YMCA could come and speak to you. So I'm just saying on 16.5 of the licensing policy, it does say the applicant is expected to demonstrate that they understand the local area demographics, and then goes on. And proximity to residential premises, housing provided, and all treatment centres aimed at vulnerable people. So I'm just wondering where, from what you've just said, how you've met 16.5 in the application.
By offering all the conditions and by reducing the hours to 8 to 11. In terms of the regional application that was submitted and the contents of that application, there is a I don't want to get involved in law because it's quite boring, but there is a High Court decision which says nobody can criticise what an applicant puts in their application. That was a case I was actually involved with in the High Court, Bristol City Council versus Bristol Magistrates Court, ex-party Summerfield. I was acting for Summerfield. So there can be no criticism about what goes in the original application. The application is here before the committee this morning, and it's the decision today on the evidence that's heard today. And that's what we've put forward, those amended conditions, huge list of conditions, and the amended hours. The issue about the YMCA, I'm saying, is kind of a side issue about working in partnership to achieve what everybody wants to achieve, which is that the vulnerable people in the YMCA do not obviously have alcohol and cause themselves issues, and more importantly, cause other people issues in that locality. So I'm not apportioning any blame there. I'm just saying that's a solution which does work in other towns. It's one that could work here. It's odd, in my view, that you would place that type of premises in a vibrant seaside town centre. Now, we can't do anything about the fact that that's the location and where it is, but what we can do is all work together to try and manage that situation better. And I'm saying the way to manage that is not stop businesses from trying to run a sustainable business by stopping them from doing legitimate things where the vast majority of people who go to the shop, if not all of them that goes to Alina's shops, purchase lawfully and don't cause a problem.
Okay, thanks for that, Mr. Walsgrove. Did you have any further questions? No. I have a question from Councillor Chapman Law.
This is probably better answered by the officer. I know we have a pub watch in Bournemouth Town Centre. Does that stretch out to Westover Road?
Yeah, it's town watch, and it covers the whole town, the centre of town.
Okay, and are the current premises part of that? Do we?
Bear with me. Just need to check the conditions, bear with me.
It's not a condition, and Alina tells me she wasn't aware that Town Watch even existed. But now, obviously, she is aware of that. She will become part of it. But I don't know, and your officer won't know, is whether the YMCA liaise with Town Watch as well. But that's certainly something that I think can be picked up after the hearing. Alina will definitely get involved in that.
If I can follow on from that, obviously the applicant has been in business now for nearly 2 years, I'm guessing, at your other venue. What communication have you had with the YMCA in that period with regarding vulnerable people from the YMCA?
None at all, and they didn't object to that application 2 years ago.
Okay, thank you for that. Any further questions? No.
I think I remember that application. And I thought the YMCA did get
If you wish.
I have a vague recollection of the previous application. I can't remember if I was on the committee or I was just watching. But I have a feeling that the YMCA did object to an application on Westover Road relatively recently, but I don't know if it was yours.
Not to Westover Express, they didn't. The objections were, there were only 2 objections. One was Dorset Police and the other Trading Standards. And I've got the minutes of that decision here.
Thank you for that, Mr. Wardgrove.
All I was going to say is, for the sort of benefit of completeness, there, Alina actually has 3 licensed, well, this would be the 3rd of her licensed premises. So Tony's Cafe, which is also on Westover Road, is also, Alina is also the licence holder for that premises as well. I will just check whether or not there was a representation from YMCA at the point that that was licensed. So if you can give me a moment, I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Ali. Right, if there are no further questions, I'd like to move on to Francesca, please. Would you be kind enough to address the committee?
Hi, thank you. So I'm Frankie and I'm the Principal Antisocial Behaviour Officer for BCP Council. I have a few concerns around the licensing of this premises. I appreciate the police may have come back on their decision. However, from our perspective, we work and liaise with the YMCA quite considerably, and also businesses down that road. Now, Westover Road is quite a busy road for our teams, dealing with antisocial behaviour, drinking, begging, and young people. It's also quite the main thoroughfare to our seafront as well. So from our perspective, we're also considering the seasonal impact of having alcohol being sold in that area when we have tourism coming through as a main thoroughfare down to our beaches, and also back off the beaches into our town centres. I'm just looking at the CSAS matrix. So we have a community safety provision for that area, and they've got a considerable amount of incidents on Westover Road, not just including alcohol, but including a range of incidences. So my concern from a antisocial behaviour perspective is, if we're including further access to alcohol and or other goods, are we going to see an increase in antisocial behaviour, not just from young people, but from tourism perspective as well, where they're coming down from Old Christchurch Road, they're coming down from Bath Hill, and they're stopping there on their way to and from the seafront?
Okay, thank you, Francesca. Members, any questions for the officer at all? Councillor Bartlett.
Thank you. Yeah, you expressed a concern there may be an increase as a result of additional alcohol sales, but have you seen any evidence that it's increased since the other licence for the other premises was granted? And given that there are such numerous outlets of alcohol sales in Westover Road, do you consider the addition of one more will make any tangible difference to the data that you already hold?
I would say that we see quite an issue with multiple mini markets across the conurbation. Westover Road is a predominantly busy area as is, with young people and people with complex needs. It can't all just be attributed to the YMCA. It's wider than that. It definitely impacts our seasonal demand, certainly. I would say that another additional alcohol sale wouldn't be a benefit to the area. I would say our teams are already considerably busy dealing with ASB, and that would likely continue, and it would add to it.
Can I come back?
Councillor Bartlett?
Yeah, so when you say add to it, is there any evidence that that issue has been added to since the addition of that other licensed premises 2 years ago?
I would need to check the CSAS data. At the moment, I've got it in the background, and I can see an awful lot of instances in the Westover area as it is, but I would need to do some digging for specifics.
Thank you. Any further questions, members? I have no further questions either. So at this point, I think I'd like to move on to.
So may I ask through the chair one
beg your
question?
pardon, Mr. Walsgrove.
It's only one question, and it was picking up on the councillor's question, actually, to ask Francesca. You've given your opinion that it will increase. Adding another alcohol licence will increase antisocial behaviour. What evidence have you got on which you're basing your opinion? What is the evidence?
So I've got the community safety accredited officers. They are patrol officers. They have accredited powers to deal with antisocial behaviour, seize alcohol, etc. They patrol the whole of BCP, predominantly the Bournemouth town centre. And I've got that incident matrix where they log live incidences in the moment on that matrix. I've just brought up Westover Road as an area, and I can see an awful lot of dots on that road indicating that they've been dealing with live instances.
You've missed the point. What does an additional licence? You've concluded that adding another licence will increase the antisocial behaviour. I'm not suggesting there isn't antisocial behaviour in the area. There is, but why does an additional licence mean additional antisocial behaviour? Why would it get worse? What evidence have you got to support that? Not giving stats of what's currently there.
Yeah, I just find that in our particular roles, we see trends where there are licensed premises around congregating around the area, whether that be from young people or people with complex needs, or certainly during seasonal influx. So things like summer holidays or bank holidays, etc., nicer weather, we find that where the licensed premises are tends to be a further congregation of people, and we just find that reports into our team are higher.
Thanks for that, Francesca. The only point I would make is that you've not brought any physical evidence to the committee with regard to that, and the committee needs to make a decision today with regards to your projected antisocial behaviour increase. No, that was the police. That was the police. Yeah. Councillor Bartlett, please. Councillor Chapman-Law.
So I think it's fair to say we've had an increase in the number of licensable premises on Westover Road. Are you seeing an increase? Are you seeing an increase in ASB in line with the increase in number of premises over the last 2 years or 3 years, or whatever?
We couldn't determine it on a trajectory. Unfortunately, I was asked to attend this quite last minute, so I don't have the data to hand initially. That is something I would certainly have to do some digging on. But what I can see from an overview is that there is a substantial amount of incidences on the road already. It's quite a busy area, and the concerns are that during our seasonal influx that we would see an increase in that.
Okay, thank you, Francesca. If there are no further questions at all, I would like to move on to the summing up. So, Francesca, is there anything else that you'd wish to add to your address to the committee that you may have forgotten?
No, that's everything from me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Martin, do you have any further items for the committee to consider at all? Yes.
Well, no, I mean, obviously, it's disappointing YMCA aren't here today to say that, because obviously I'm not here to represent just the YMCA. I'm here to represent obviously ward residents. Obviously, it was mentioned about the license given 2 years ago. Since then, the YMCA have been in touch with myself and Councillor Hazel Allen, who just missed the deadline for representation. But obviously, we received lots of issues down Westover Road, lots of issues around antisocial behaviour and all the rest of it. And it's not about and also from the YMCA, who later have been in touch about stuff that has gone on there. Obviously, as ward councillors, we always tell people, you don't just report to us, you report to the police and to the antisocial behaviour teams, and that's where we like to see the increase in data to show what we know to have happened over time, what we get told anecdotally, the stuff that we're told as ward councillors, which I appreciate doesn't necessarily always translate into data, but that's the basis of making a representation today, because that is stuff that we have gone to the MPT, to the neighbourhood policing team with. It's stuff that we've had discussions about, and I have to say, as a ward councillor, I'm disappointed in the fact that mediation went on. The MPT came to us to ask us, myself and Hazel, obviously after, we speak about issues all the time all across Bournemouth Central, and they knew this was on the radar for today. And obviously we've spoken to them, we inputted into some of their original work that they did. And then mediation went on between the applicant and the police, and then they didn't come back to us, or I don't believe they liaised with the council. They just sort of accepted these, they've done the amendments, and then this is what's been submitted today, the amendments. And obviously we had no part in that mediation, and so that's why I just felt, after we'd already said that we'd allow for mediation to take place, and that obviously hadn't taken place between all the representations. And I still feel that comes back to, I know I already mentioned it in the previous, in the applicant's presentation, but 16.5 of the licensing policy, with regards to understanding.
Yeah, I think you've made that point.
Yeah,
quite
okay,
clearly.
Chair. Yeah,
So
yeah.
just summing up, really.
Okay, yeah. I mean, that's where I am. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Martin. Mr. Walgrove, do you have any further?
Just really picking up on that point, or should I say criticism, that we didn't mediate with other parties. Obviously, I have been involved in this application at a late stage. I didn't deal with the initial submission of the application. I've been asked to come along and be the advocate today, and picked it up after the adjournment for mediation to take place. And obviously my view, as I've expressed to you, is the police are the experts on whether crime and disorder would be impacted by another licence being granted. So they, of course, are the primary person who made the representation, who I'm going to engage with first to see whether there is any grounds to mediate. Because the bottom line is, if we can't mediate with the police, then we'd be wasting everybody else's time having a discussion, because the police position would come to you that our expert view is that it'll have a detrimental impact if you grant this licence. So that's why we took that approach. To say then we didn't get in touch with anybody else is not true. So after the mediation with the police, and after they accepted sorry, I just saw a dog run across the screen, our position, we then asked that the other interested parties all be notified of the amendments to the application and the conditions that were agreed with the police, so that they would have the opportunity of considering those. No one's been taken by surprise that all of those changes were agreed and made today. We haven't come to you without letting everybody know. And a conversation could have taken place if those interested parties were of a mind to change their view. They could have come back and said, well, we accept that, but actually we've still got concerns, that they didn't choose to do that. They maintained their objection, other than the other councillor who withdrew her objection, obviously satisfied with the mediation with the police. So I don't want this committee to think that my client isn't someone who's willing to work and have conversations with people locally. She, as you've heard, she's got 2 licensed premises in Westover Road, one a cafe, one a shop, and works in partnership with the responsible authorities, and will work in partnership with the councillors, and will engage with the YMCA. You're a little constrained with the formalities of a licensing hearing, and particularly when you instruct a lawyer whose advice is, well, the first person we need to discuss this with is the police. So I just wanted you to understand that process. That's not my client in any way being seen to be difficult. As I said to you from the outset in my presentation, and it's the final point I'll make to you, your decision has to be evidence-based, and the opinions that have been expressed by both people making representations to here are just that, opinions. They're not supported by any credible evidence. And I ask you to attach the greatest weight to the fact that none of the responsible authorities believe that if you grant the licence, there will be a negative impact. Environmental health, trading standards, and the police, all 3 that deal with any issues that have been raised by the interested parties and may raise as concerns for you, have said if you grant this licence, in effect they've said if you grant this licence there will be no negative impact. And lastly, of course, a premises licence can be reviewed if in the future there is such credible evidence that the shop granted the licence then does lead to an increase in alcohol related crime and disorder, then the premises licence can be reviewed. And that's where this committee should have confidence that you should allow businesses to succeed and be sustainable, knowing that if they're not true to their word in everything we've said to you today, it can be reviewed, and it's a privilege that can be removed very quickly. Thank you, councillors.
Thank you, Mr Walsgrove. I will now conclude the hearing. At the end of this...
Sorry, I just wanted to come back on on Councillor Chapman Law's question about the representation by YMCA. So when Tony's Cafe, the initial application, they did make a representation, but that application was refused. But when the next application came in for Tony's Cafe, there was no representation from the YMCA.
Thank you, Ellie. Clearly, you may have sat on that subcommittee, Councillor Chapman.
I knew I'd somewhere.
Right, I will now conclude the hearing. At the end of this meeting, the subcommittee will adjourn in private with the legal advisor and the clerk to deliberate. The decision will be conveyed to you in writing as explained earlier. Did you just want to touch on the right of appeal, Andy? Thank you.
Parties will have a right of appeal to the Magistrates' Court against this, in relation to this decision, within 21 days, beginning with the day on which the applicant is notified in writing of this decision. And the decision will not come into effect until the expiry of the said 21 days.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your attendance.